Okay, and I'm going to let him in.
Okay. So good evening. So thank you for joining us, Joe. My name is Mark Becker. I'm the chair of this smaller committee of the Board of Ed, Finance and Operations Committee. So appreciate you coming here to present the proposal you guys have put together.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. I just one agenda item, just formality wise, there's an agenda item for audience for staff and citizens. I think, John, you're the only one in that role here, like for this committee. You know, currently it's Dave, Mary Ellen, and I, and then Rose is kind of all the committees. So, but if you had any comments or anything like that, feel free to bring them up now. Should be good.
We're going to give him some committee assignments. So.
That's right. Yeah, okay, so basically no additional staff citizens here, so should be able to move right into your presentation now.
Well, that was nice and easy. Well, thanks, guys. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys tonight. You know, we had been talking about this, Mary Ellen and myself had been talking about this for a while. I had gone out there with Jack Cunningham, who's my director of our energy efficiency team at Environmental Systems Corporation 2, to see how we can incorporate some kind of a comprehensive type project with incentives and savings. Obviously, that's the goal here. As you guys know, you have an older, antiquated kind of system there that's inefficient and aging, which is going to be in need of some capital improvements in the very near future. Eversource did just roll out yesterday the VRF rebates, which are $3,000 a ton in Connecticut. Now, just so we're all on the same page here, the load calculation that we had come out with is 106 tons that would be VRF throughout the school. So that's 300, over $300,000 in incentives from Eversource on this. Now, that is not in a comprehensive type program. And I'll tell you why. We're kind of steering a little bit away from the comprehensive type program too, because we're going to show so much savings in this measure. I don't know if we'll be able to find other measures that would be more than 20% of the savings. And in order for it to be a comprehensive project, I have to have 3 different measures, and not one of them can be more or less than 20% of the savings. So it's probably going to be an incentive-based thing unless we can find something else. And when the new comprehensive programs do come out, if they're written a little bit differently than they were the previous years, maybe we can find an opening to get a little bit more savings. But at the current time, it's looking like it's going to be just over $300,000 in incentives for a VRF heat pump system for the school. What we're looking at doing is completely getting rid of the fossil fuel in general for the school. So your primary and your sole source of heating, both your hot water and your building, are going to be from heat pump, high efficiency heat pumps. Okay. The hot water, there's been new technology that's been introduced over the last few years for heat pump hot water heaters. I'm sure you guys have seen at least commercials for, maybe them on the residential side. On the commercial industrial side, which is where we live in the K through 12, that's going to be done with a VRF type system. Okay, so I will have condensing units that are going to be heat pump condensing units for the actual hot water itself. And it's also going to do a couple different things for you, which we'll get into as well. So basically what we're looking at, kind of our findings, where the existing system uses fossil fuel and is not energy efficient, and the school does not have central air conditioning. So we're trying to accomplish a few different things all at once, right? You guys have a lot of solar out there. If I can use that as your fuel, right? It's going to save you guys quite a bit of money. I believe you guys are all oil out there, I believe. I don't think there was gas, right?
Right, oil.
Okay. I thought it was oil boiler. And you have some existing air handlers, which are up in the attic. Those are your fresh air. You have hot water coils that are going to them right now that are off the oil boiler. I'm looking at removing those existing air handlers, putting in high efficiency LG air handlers with heat pump coils in them. Okay, so your fresh air would actually be still coming in through the same duct system. I'd remove the existing air handler. I'd get the hydronic coil out of it. I'd cap that piping that's coming up to there. I'd put a new air handler in there. It would be connected to a heat pump condensing unit outside. What we're looking at doing in general is furnishing and installing a high efficient heat pump system throughout the school. The systems will provide heating, air conditioning, ventilation, and domestic hot water, and will eliminate the need for existing heating system. Now, the existing heating system can still stay in place as redundancy, but there's absolutely no reason to, or no need to use that existing heating system with the system that I'm proposing. Okay, so this would compromise of 14 outdoor condensing units, and this is an LG system. Okay, 44 wall-mounted units inside the classrooms, 4 high-static air handlers, which would go in the attic in place of the existing air handlers that are there, 10 ceiling cassettes that would go in the hallways to cover the common area. Okay, 3 hydronic units, which would be the hot water systems, and 2 indirect water heaters. Now, the indirect water heaters, again, would be off the heat pump, so it would be electric. The heat pump would be heating the indirect water heaters. The water heaters would obviously feed the domestic water needs, the hot water needs for the school. What was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, keep going, Joe.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. We'd also be installing an LG Smart V central controller, and that will have graphical and user interface and a touchscreen display. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the whole system. It will be zoned individually for each area that it's covering, but it's all going to tie back into one central controller. Now with this, at some point, if you guys ever wanted to, you could introduce, you know, a built-in automation system to it if there was ever a need or an interest or something for that. The control system that's with this controls the entire system anyway, so it's not a necessity to put in an automation system. But if you guys saw the need for it or saw a benefit to it for, you know, to add your control lighting in and everything else, your lighting controls in, then you could potentially put that in front of Eversource and see if there would be any incentives for that too. But I wouldn't propose doing that at, you know, right off the start here, because you may find with the central controller that you have here, you could probably invest that money a little bit differently into a different area. We put this together budgetarily for now. Okay. And the reason I say budgetarily for now is because there's a lot more work that needs to go into this. There's engineering that needs to be done. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done before we can get this into a buyout form. So when I give you this budget, I want you to understand that this budget is also inflated because I don't know when this is going to move forward. So when we do a budget, we go through, I get budgetary pricing on my equipment. I look at worst case scenario and add, because I need to make sure that I'm covered. When I give you a budget, I don't want you to go back and say, all right, well, yeah, it's actually going to be $200,000 more. I'd rather say, hey, guess what? It's actually $100,000 less, you know, because that's where we're all in a better position. And if we run into anything during the project that's outside of the scope that you guys want us to take care of, there's always money left over for it. Okay, so for us to come out and do this LG system, what we'd be looking at would be $892,500. Now that does not include the full electrical, because there's an electrical load calculation that will have to be done out there. Okay, we would want to bring an electrician out there. If you wanted to budget in for electrical on there, I'd say a safe number would probably be $60,000 for electrical. But I'd want an electrician, and that's something that you and I can work with. I would sub the electrical out. If you guys wanted me to work with an electrician that you guys work with, I have no problem with that either. So it would save you guys a markup, because if it goes through my business, obviously we have to mark it up. We're taking the liability and so forth. If you guys wanted to work with a local electrician, and it could save you, and they're capable of doing the work, then I have no problem working with them. So
Can this be done? Can this be done when school is going on?
Great question. Absolutely not. This would definitely be a summer project. There's portions that can be done, but I have so much work that needs to be done in the classrooms. I think it would be a disruption.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways where we could strategically do through, a spring break, get as much done in some classrooms. I mean, we can work with you. I'd have a dedicated project manager on this project that would sit down with you guys and lay out the schedule for you and work with you and what areas we can be in where and so forth. Most times when we do something like this, this is something we'd want to do over the summer. Because if not, I mean, even if I'm working in another classroom, 3 classrooms down from where you're having a class, I'm drilling through the wall, I'm making noise, I'm a distraction. We could talk about second shift. If you wanted to get it sooner rather than later. For second shift, the way I would set that up would just be a shift differential. So it wouldn't be like it's time and a half. I would just have the guys work second shifts through the project. Okay, so that way you guys, there would be a small difference in price. Even in our budgetary, if I was to do it second shift right now, I don't think it would raise the budget whatsoever. But it would come closer to that budget cap once I start adding to it.
So you had talked earlier, Joe, about the current incentive, and the numbers you had said is that they're giving how much? Like
$3,000 a ton.
$3,000 a ton.
Yeah, and you guys have, I'm proposing 106 tons, so that's 318,000 in incentives. So yeah,
And do you think this, like you had mentioned that we need the 3 elements, and then Mary Ellen has brought that up before too. But do you think I think we could find that, but therefore, do you think we would be able to apply for that or not? Would that be applicable to us or not?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because I don't know if we're going to be able to have enough savings in another measure because you have so much of your lighting done already. If there was more lighting, possibly. When was the lighting done, actually?
It was done in under 3 phases. The parking lot was done first several years ago. And then the LEDs in the classrooms, maybe 2 years. Well,
yeah,
Mark would
that's
have it
what
on
I
the
thought.
5-year. And
Yeah,
then smaller amounts, though, recently.
Yeah, and that's why when we were looking at it and kind of going through that, there's not enough savings there where I can put that against this kind of a project and it be considered, all my savings is going to be in the heat pumps.
So.
When
Go
ahead.
Go ahead. Mary Ellen, go ahead.
When I was talking with Jack, he mentioned that it could be savings in another municipal building. Is that something worth exploring? And when you get up to the 3 measures, how much more do you get?
So great question. I'm still waiting for that to be rolled out this year. I don't even want to tell you because if we can't make it happen, it's going to be disheartening. It was up to 65% of the installed cost.
Wow.
That's what they did for 2022.
Okay, so we were looking at solar elsewhere, and right now we were told that the federal government gives a 30% back. So that would that 30% still be there as in addition to a 3-measure incentive, or is that change it?
That I don't know 100%. I would have to find out, and we're still waiting for the fine print on the programs for 2023.
Okay.
That might be something where we have, for me to give you a definitive answer, it's going to be somewhere in the first quarter of next year. But the fact that you brought up the other municipalities, and we did have that conversation, I can re-talk to Jack, because Jack and I had a meeting earlier today. I told him we were doing the presentation tonight. We've been kind of chipping at this for the last few months now. I can bring that back up and see if that does work with municipalities. Yes, you can do other buildings. So if you do have lighting in another building, if you do, I don't know how solar plays with it other than the separate credits for solar. So I don't want to speak too much into that. We have a whole solar team that knows those incentives. We may be able to pull something off, but in the elementary school, I mean, even we looked at aerators, we looked at trying to do anything in there to make it work. There's nothing that really makes sense that's going to save you the money or get you into that comprehensive where you're going to have the financial justification to move forward with it. And,
okay.
you know, unfortunately, I would just, I'm not going to kind of BS you for no reason. It's, oh yeah, let's do it. I don't think so. We kicked this around a million different ways trying to figure out what we can do. But because, I mean, you guys are so energy forward as it is, it's hard to find measures like that. I can go into other schools and look around and I'm like, all right, yeah, I can do almost anything here and they're going to give me incentives for it. When I go into yours, you have solar on the roof. You've done most of the lighting in there. You've even done the outdoor lighting like we were talking about. I mean, there's so much that's already been done there. The new VRF heat pump technology and the new kind of system that we're proposing is really the next big improvement for your school.
So
But
that
mixing in the other buildings.
890 the 892,000, does that already include the about 318,000 in, no?
No,
So we're talking more like 500,000.
exactly.
And that 0% financing on the electric bill, is that still part of this?
That would be on the comprehensive type program that I'm not 100% sure of yet. Again,
Okay.
some of this I'm going to have to get answers in the first quarter because we're overlapping from last year's rebates and incentives to this year's. Luckily, they just introduced the 3,000 for the heat pump, and I'm like, yes, this is awesome. But there's still some fine details that we're waiting to get in.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. But I think to your point, Mary Ellen, I think investigating the other buildings once we fully understand the 2023 programs is probably going to be the best approach, because if I can get you this incentive plus, this could really make sense for you guys. And at that point too, we can put together the savings calculations, your payback calculations. Once we know all the full measures and incentives, this can be much more detailed.
But
Right
Mary
now, it's
Ellen,
kind of budgetary and talking plan.
Okay.
So Joe,
thank
if, the 892, just to make sure I'm clear. That is the cost. That does not factor in any incentives.
That's correct.
Any incentives that we would get would come off, like.
It would come off of that.
Towards the 892. Okay, just want to
Yep.
make.
And remember, you added additional in there for the electrical work.
Right. So
That needs to
people
be
said
done
almost
too,
a
but
million.
that's still,
Almost
none of this
a
has
million.
rebates into it yet. Everything will be off of these numbers,
Okay,
So when will we know about the rebates?
probably towards the end of January.
Okay,
Eversource is not that quick with the information sometimes,
yeah,
but the way it's looking and what they're doing is they're following Mass. So Massachusetts started these kind of heat pump rebates last year. So this is it's a very good sign that maybe the comprehensive program may be boosted up. Again, at the very least, for them to offer $3,000 per ton off a system like this, you know, when, especially if you're an oil system and it's going to save you, 30 to 40% of your heating cost per year. It's a huge amount of savings.
that is quite a,
yeah, $600,000 right there.
that makes a big difference. If we can get that kind of a rebate.
Yeah. Well, those rebates, sir, are definitely guaranteed for next year. The 3,000 a ton is guaranteed. It's the
So-
comprehensive program that we don't fully understand yet.
So with this, if we did go with this new system, we got the rebate, what cost savings projections are there for us as far as what are we going to save on oil or energy costs? So that also goes into the incentive, the cost savings justification.
That's absolutely
There a
right.
way that you can project that.
Once I have real information on the full incentive package,
Yeah.
yes, we will give you a detailed financial report that will clearly dictate that.
So basically,
And even show you your payback time.
so Joe, you're basically targeting the end of January
Yes,
to have all those
Yep.
cards on the table?
correct.
Okay,
But do we know? Have we done the math yet to know if the solar that we have would cover all that load when it's all running? Because that's going to be a fairly significant load when we are fully electric.
Correct. And that's a part where I need to get my solar team out there with me and fully understand the capability of your existing system versus what we have now. And if we do need to add anything else, put it into a comprehensive type program.
so you'll be able to do that before the end of January, the solar team?
Correct.
Okay, that's part of this projection, okay.
Yep.
That's our cost savings justification, really. The rebate
100% it is.
and the energy savings, the two combined.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
what's gonna justify doing this if we in fact do it, you know?
Correct. And that's, I didn't want to delay anymore. I know you guys have kind of been waiting for me to come to the table with this. That's why I wanted to come today with what we have so far,
Good.
especially once I heard the $3,000 a ton rebate, because if we can tie this in, if we can get you low to no interest financing, on bill financing, that kind of stuff, if we can get the solar to support at least, 60 to 75%, if not 100% of the cost, and then you're not really paying for fuel. I mean, this project could justify itself with the right calculations, but I need to fully understand the program before I can lay it out to you that detailed.
Okay.
Joe, I recently heard that if you put their virtual net metering is really not existing anymore. But if you put solar in a municipal building or in the backyard of a municipal building, you can share dollar for dollar the cost of what's generated in another building. For example, you could not just talk about what's generated, but you could talk about the peak demand cost and all of that from the other buildings. So we don't have much backyard left and our roof is covered, but if we conceivably put it somewhere else in town, like we have a huge backyard at Town Hall, if we could, put solar there, it can pay for the bill at the elementary school.
Correct.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, so that's a possibility too. And again, I'll when we get the full incentive details, that's when Brendan, Jack, everybody else will get back involved and try to put this whole, basically what we're doing is we have puzzle pieces right now. So once we get the rest of these puzzle pieces, we're going to put this all together for you and see what's the best thing for Hampton. How can we help you guys the most? For me, just putting in, a VRF system doesn't really help you, but let's paint the whole picture. If it is, taking out the fuel bill from you, then wow, that's huge. If they are going to incentivize it by 30 or more %, wow, that's huge. So there's a lot that can go together with it. It's just until I have the fine details, I don't want to overpromise and underproduce. You know what I'm saying? Right. And until, again, this is utilities I'm dealing with. So until they show it to me in writing, that's when I know wholeheartedly what we can do. And that's how we base our calculations.
Okay, great.
For the system that you laid out, do you by any chance have that kind of itemized or in a file that you could share with us?
I have, I don't know if I have the full submittal package on my computer. I can probably send you over a submittal package tomorrow.
Yeah, if you want to, maybe share that with Mary Ellen or Dr. Sarley, and then they could forward it to the rest of the team.
Sure.
Well, my last email to you, I put all of us down, everybody that's in the room.
So what I'll do then is I'll pull that up and share it with the team. So that way you guys can kind of see. I'll share the, it's again, just a basic budget proposal. This is not what you will get as a final. Mary Ellen, you've seen some of our financial, especially when we do an energy project, how we lay out the financials on there. So that way it does answer all the questions, and there will be much more of us involved in a project like this, obviously too, once it comes to that point. I do have a solar team. I let them do I'm HVAC. I've been doing HVAC for 22 years. So I let them be solar guys. I don't know the solar. But on the HVAC side, that's me. On the energy side, that's Jack. So we do have a whole team that we assemble on a project like this.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe?
I think for now, that's it. Was just kind of in standby. We'll review the package he's got. And
Yep. And then once I have the rest of this, what I'll do as soon as I have the full incentive program, Mary Ellen, I'm going to reach out to you and we'll set up another meeting. So that way we can give you a true, hey, this is a buyout number. These are your savings. This is what it looks like. This is how much solar you have. This is how much more you can get. We'll have a full package together for you guys. So you have, all the information in front of you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, Joe, I think, appreciate the discussion and presentation. Sounds like maybe after January in our February meeting, we'll have more to discuss, about what the path forward could be and, with some more of the facts and details.
Yep.
I guess for now, we'll probably continue down the path of the rest of the meeting for the F&O, so feel free to stay and listen, but it'd be really boring, so feel free to sign off as well, so.
No problem. Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity and I appreciate the time to gather all of this, because obviously, again, when you start talking about a project like this isn't something that just goes together in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And we do have to look at all the fine details.
Right.
But we do have time with this program, if it is something that you guys wanted to move forward with, to possibly start planning this year and get into the summer, however we're going to do it, at least lock in the pricing and the incentives.
Oh, one more question. Is this
Yes.
one of those programs where they're going to tell you the first bunch of schools or municipalities that get in, got it, and then there's no more money? Or do you know any?
Great question. And obviously you've dealt with utilities for a while too. This is not an RFP type thing. So yes, they could eventually
Okay.
run out of funding for the rebates, but I would expect that in fourth quarter of next year.
Okay.
If it even happens. You're in Eversource territory. Usually Eversource is good. It's usually UI that loses the funding first.
Yeah.
We want to
Okay.
make it earlier in the year versus later. All right, Joe, have a good night.
You too.
Thank
Thanks,
you
guys.
again.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Well,
Just we'll get into the further discussion in a minute. Just the next thing on the agenda was minutes from November 10th. Review of those. I looked at them. I didn't have any comments. Dave, if you
I
had a
read
chance.
through it. Briefly, just
Rose, were you all set?
Yeah, they look good to me.
Okay. All right, thank you for throwing those together, Mary Ellen.
Very good.
So,
Problem.
good to go with no comments. So, yeah, I think, as far as the mini split conversation, we can get back into that. So that's definitely, a fairly large bill. One thing maybe you guys could clear up for me, like I was going back and forth on whether the $3,000 per ton rebate applies to us or not. Currently,
Yes. Yes, it would.
that would apply, but not the, what was the other word, concurrent or consecutive
Comprehensive.
or comprehend. So that would not.
Not now because we don't have any other measures.
But that would be on top of the 3,000?
That's what he thinks. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that's why we gotta wait and see. Well, we got
Right.
no choice. We gotta wait anyhow, but that's a big savings at 300,000. And then if we can get an energy rebate too. Right, Mary Ellen?
Well, okay, so I didn't want to mention this because it just happened last night and I don't know where we're going with it, but the Green Energy Committee, we had a proposal 10 years ago to put solar on top of the town garage, and the people in office, I guess, didn't want it. Okay, they thought it was ugly, whatever. Right now, there's 30% rebate on putting in new solar. That's a federal program. It's guaranteed. So CTEC Solar 10 years ago did the proposal, and they came out a couple months ago. Took a long time to say they don't do anything smaller than 3 megawatts. So they're not doing it. But my sister Kate, who's the chair of the committee, reached out to Earthlight. Now, Earthlight did our lighting in the parking lot and all over our school. They're a very good company. And they said they talked a lot about what could be done, and Kate's reaching out to get it on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for January, maybe February. So what I said last night was, well, if we're looking at a different company to do the school, can the two companies work together, or do we need to do it all through one company? And so that's like sort of a delicate thing with the companies. So I didn't bring it up, but Alan and John Tillinghast, who you know are both selectmen, went to the walkthrough with C-Tech Solar, and they did seem opposed to it this time. Like they hadn't, well, John wasn't on it, but Alan was a selectman before. They were talking about doing it.
Is this the
So
walkthrough you're talking about on garage?
on the garage, yeah.
Yep.
So if we did solar on the garage, and or on the ground at the garage or at the town hall, it could be all tied in. And the thing that I brought up to Joe was it's dollar for dollar. If you overproduce at one of these sites, it'll pay our bills at the elementary school. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. What, I lost track of, the presentation from Air Temp Mechanical from last month. When they came back, what was their new price?
It was a little over 900,000.
With the system set up to do heating, like we asked them?
The high heat
Okay,
was 900,000.
It was for the comprehensive project. For just the mini splits, it was, I want to say 150,000. If we
Yeah, it
were
was
just to
90,000
install,
was the regular, and then the high heat was 100 and some thousand, something like
Yep.
that.
yeah, but then they did the comprehensive project simple. Maybe that's the wrong word, Mary Ellen, I'm sorry, but they did a similar breakdown like this, and it was 900,000.
right. And they're
The
right,
first time they didn't
900,000
include
would be
the
a
whole
full
school.
revamp of the system, get rid of their first proposal that they sent us. We really was just I'll say supplemental to maintaining an oil heat.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So the
if I,
comprehensive would be completely removing the oil heat, similar to what Joe
What these
just
guys are
presented.
proposing. So they're in line with each other. If you look at that.
Yeah.
I do
And
wonder,
what's Joe's company again? Sorry.
ESC.
Oh.
Energy Systems Corporation, I think is what it is, right? ESC.
Yeah.
Samantha.
I don't know the name of them. Mary Ellen, ESC, is
You have
that something?
ESC on a shirt.
Yeah. I
Mary
think it
Ellen.
is. And I think it is Energy Systems. I don't have the thing in
Yes.
front of me.
I do wonder if we want to, so I have a couple questions. Do you mind, Mark, if I just ask a couple?
Oh, go ahead.
So Greenleaf had sent us something that was comparable to this price. So I'm wondering if you guys want to hear them again. That's kind of my first thought, because at first we thought that was too rich for our blood, but now hearing that that's kind of the going cost, it might be worth hearing them out. I know they've done a ton of schools through the state, so it might be worth hearing them give us a little presentation. Especially if we're waiting till January anyways, they can come to our January meeting and we
Right.
can hear what they have to say. I had talked to Mark earlier in the week, just because I have questions on where we're going with this. So are we looking to do such a large project, or are we looking to just install mini splits? Because that has, and time frame, because you guys know that I'm working towards our budget for next year, and to know what those implications are going to look like, or at least have some thought line into what that would look like, is really difficult for us to judge at this time, because I'm confused as to where you guys see this going, which way this project is going.
I
I
guess,
think we're not going to know how it's going to help the budget until we find out from Eversource what the incentives are. And so, you know, I mean, yeah, I would like to do this over the summer, but what's the cost? We don't know. And I mean, we're gonna have to finance if we don't get a lot of rebate incentive money. We don't know if, he mentioned that we don't know if the 0% financing through the electric bill is part of it or not. It should be. I think it is. But I personally, I would just leave it as it is. You know,
Right.
whatever our energy bill is this year will be our energy bill next year until we make decisions.
Right.
Yeah,
But I think one thing I didn't get from Joe is like, Air Temp Mechanical gave us the mini split only option, which was like the 160,000. I didn't get that Joe had even, did ECS even look at that, or did they just go for the full scale change similar to that up the Greenleaf? Because that would be two different proposals. And two different potentials. I mean, quite honestly, even if we, let's say, got $300,000 towards this and we were still at $1 million, I mean, we can still spend a lot of money on oil before we ever get anywhere close to $600,000. And I don't foresee that that is going to be a supported project for our small little elementary school at this time, whereas $150,000 to do the mini splits, and then that would help save the oil without being a complete
and also give you a little cooling when you needed it too,
rate in the summer.
in the summer.
I think that might be more feasible. You know, to answer your question, Dr. Sarli, I kind of agree with Mary Ellen now. Until we know some more facts about what we could potentially have for incentives, I wouldn't be comfortable making a decision right now. But quite honestly, at $600,000, I mean, maybe people disagree with me, but I don't foresee that I would be supportive of going through that system upgrade for that cost.
Okay,
Well,
that's helpful.
I took the cost, the $892,500, and added another 60,000 on for electrical. And then I took 35% of that, and it came down to 333,000. Because I think we can get to that that 65% incentive. And that would cover the whole school. So for 333,000, we have to take a look at how much the oil costs and subtract that, and then see what the financing is on it, because it's going to be the oil cost year after year after year too.
Right.
So I think we have to try to move towards that 65% incentive. And Mark, on that 150,000, I think that company was only looking at the classrooms that Frank identified as needing changes. I don't think they included the rest of the building.
And
In every room that
They came and counted, but
all the
maybe.
classrooms that were currently being used, I think was the 150,000. Then we sent them back and said, do the whole school. So I have to dig it out, but
Okay.
you remember when David and I walked through, they had the blueprints, they had the numbers different because the blueprints are different, and they went around identifying just the classrooms being used. So 150,000 is not a lot of money. And I think what they're doing is putting a compressor outside of every room and then the heat pump inside, which is what we have in the server room, the superintendent's office,
Right.
preschool, and the kindergarten.
And I
Yeah.
can't speak, I haven't tested it out in pre-K, K yet, but I know in my office, it does not turn to heat. It is just a cooling unit. I've tried it.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
So there might be rooms
Wow.
that were left out that we would have to reconsider if that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do like, so I just to add some knowledge, because David, remember I said to you I was going to look into our Eversource and our lighting and were the solar panels saving us? Are they saving us? And while I'm still in the weeds of it, because I wasn't part of the process of getting the solar panels, so that's kind of become my next step into this. But I was on the phone with Eversource for about an hour last week, and we looked at a previous bill just for comparison purposes of what we've generated, where we are, where we're going. And so our biggest draw is through the months of, he said late April, so figure like May to August is when we really are getting our solar energy, mainly because by the time the summer hits, there's no kids in the building. It's just really the principal's office that's being utilized. So there's a lot of solar energy that's getting banked at that time. And that energy is getting us, he said, through to early winter. When Sally and I were starting to review, we think it gets through a little bit more than just early winter, but gets us through a good part before we have to start paying a usage fee. So when I was looking at our September numbers, just for, I just wanted to have clear facts, like, did we save, how much should we save, and the information of that. And so we did not have a usage fee. We just had a distribution fee. And so transmission and a distribution fee, we had that. No usage fee. And so that bill was $716.96. And that was from September to October, which is kind of a good time frame to think of. Kids were back in the building, you know, all that kind of stuff. When you factor in our lease was approximately $574, and so that's totaling $1,290. Okay. Then if we look at just our usage for September to October, which was $8,480, if we factored in the supply alone would have been over $1,000. And so when they calculated it out for me, it was just around $3,000 if we were to not have solar panels. So we are significantly saving in terms of having our solar panels on and the usage that we're getting for them. I spoke to Mark about this though, because knowing that it doesn't carry us through maybe the entire year, if we were to go completely dependent upon electricity, like what we're being presented, I don't believe our solar panels are going to produce enough as is. They wouldn't produce enough to just solely go right into this project and assume that we're going to see the same type of savings, because we know how much it's banking, we know how much it gets for us. But now if you're saying, you know, the entire building is going to be on our solar panel grid, we're not producing enough to cover that. So we would now have to factor in a usage fee in addition to, if, like Mary Ellen said, we didn't get extra solar panels or something of that nature was to happen.
Got it.
So,
Well, we'd save on oil.
well,
question
maybe,
is-
right? Because if we had usage, usage is going up to 2303 for the next 6 months coming in January. So, you know, maybe.
You don't know for
Well,
sure, I know.
yeah, I mean, but I think what David, we would completely eliminate our oil bill, but
We
whether
would.
that would be
Right.
overcome by our usage fee, especially at the higher rate, that would be something that would be hard to tell.
The other thing too, I'm glad you're looking at it, and I really appreciate the fact that you're looking at the energy part of it, the solar. Well, like I was asking, is what about the lease for the solar? Does that ever end?
It does. We're in, don't quote me, I feel like it's a 22-year lease, Mary Ellen. I just left the file back
That's
in
okay.
my office, but I think it's something like that.
There is light at the end of the tunnel, but by
Yes.
that time we'll need more panels anyhow, so I'll be a new lease, but
Yeah.
okay, all right. Thanks a lot for looking at that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna keep digging so I have a better sense, so we're not just relying on these companies to tell us
No.
either.
Well,
Right.
while we're on the topic and we got time, I don't know, I'd be willing to listen to the Greenleaf guy, I guess, and maybe compare apples and apples a little more, you
Right.
know? Which is
Okay.
a good point. We probably should. That way we got all the cards on the table and,
Right.
you know, and see
Okay.
where the energy rebates come and get that information at the end of January, beginning of February, and then we could seriously maybe look at
Right.
making a decision what direction we want to go.
Okay.
Maybe.
I mean, it would
But
be,
now we don't have enough information to give direction on which way we're gonna go for budget purposes.
That's
And that's
fine. I'll
just
carry as
important,
is.
You know,
Yep, that's fine.
realistically.
I don't have the budget from last year. To know what the oil budget was last year.
So I was gonna
Or-
wait to start talking about this year's budget later down, because that's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
a
know.
topic of discussion for me.
Yep,
Next,
So-
We'll be down to the
before you
wire
go-
like everything else, you know. But I know
Before
you
you go
wanna
on
get
to
that.
that, before you go on to that, I just want to say too that not only would we save on not buying oil, but we're now running a lot of pumps that we would not be running, and they're all electrical.
Yeah,
So there's
save
probably
that.
be cut down on that. Plus, heat pumps are supposed to be so much more efficient than other kinds of heating. So, because they reclaim heat, whatever. So I don't, yeah, it's gonna be hard to figure out. We need an engineer in there to figure out exactly what we can drop
we're all excited.
for cost.
Mm,
Yeah, I do hope, that we can get some other solar panels up in town and then just use those to pay off our electric bill and just get off fossil fuels.
Yeah,
I think the tricky thing is going to be like, how many companies are we going to
Yeah.
do, and can one company do it all so that or can two companies work together to get us the incentives? And I don't know how these companies make their money, and if we would be messing them up to have one company do the solar and another company do heat pump installation. So we kind of need a comprehensive company that's already approved by the state of Connecticut, so we don't have to go through bidding out.
yeah. All right, what was the last company? So was that Greenleaf? Is that,
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I'll reach out to them.
all right, so we'll see if we can do a presentation in January and
Yes.
continue the discussion.
Yes,
Yeah, and I apologize, Dr. Sarli, it's just, right now, it's just too hard to, be able to make a comprehensive decision, until we know a little bit more, so. I
no,
know
that's
it's
fine.
going fine, but,
That's okay. That's okay. That's why I asked. So it's good to know.
she just wants to remind us.
right. Yeah, this is budget
I'm just-
season, reminding
well,
us. Budget
yeah.
season.
And I'm just trying to get a grapple as to where we are. So it's good to know that we don't know where we are, and I'm not the only one that doesn't know where we are. So,
Right.
We're on the
This is a
same.
big step. It's a
Yes.
very big step,
Right. Yeah, when you're talking that much money, it's not trivial.
You got to think about maintenance of these systems too. What's it take to maintain the oil system? What's it going to take to maintain the mini splits, and what's it going to take to maintain all these air handlers and heat pumps and all this other stuff that they're talking about too? Because, if the maintenance factors into this, we could be shooting ourselves in the foot over this too. So we need to have somebody we can trust to tell us about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what
And
kind of,
one of the companies, when David and I walked through, one of the companies said that they store spare parts right in your attic, and maintenance was part of it. So, yeah.
Oh, if maintenance was part of the contract, that would be a big plus.
yeah,
Because I know a oil heating
it
system.
was the mini splits, the guy with the mini splits.
Hmm.
Was the one that said that, I think, right, Mary Ellen?
Well, they all have the mini splits, so I don't know.
Oh,
which
okay.
one. Yeah, that's another question we should ask when we're talking to the company. Do they have service people, not just installers?
Yeah. Because you can buy oil from anybody, but you can't get anybody to come out and service your system. And a lot of times, if you ain't buying oil from the guy, he don't want to come service your system. So, one hand's kind of got to wash the other.
Right.
Yeah, we use New England Mechanical.
Right now, it's a New England mechanic.
For maintenance on the system. So.
Yeah.
and of
But
course,
we don't buy the oil from them.
Well, no, they probably don't sell it, but I'm saying.
Yeah, and MCOR, we have a contract with that also service our,
Yep.
our HVAC, so.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else on mini splits? I think that I'm good for now. All right. PA system, Dr. Sarli, do you have any updates on that?
I wish I did, but we're still looking at January.
Okay. All right. That's a quick discussion then. All right, anything else for the 5-year plan? I think Mary Ellen and I, maybe based on prompting from Alan, we're just wondering in the library here, just the sunroom. We had looked at putting a curtain up a couple of years ago, or what the options are for the room out there. The glass is no longer like thermally insulated, you know, it's kind of worn out type of stuff. So, I don't know what the options are for that, but maybe we have to look at, you know, potential for a curtain over the door. I'm not sure how much it's used by the kids during the day. I think Alan pointed out, he's like, well, even if we put some doors up in it and we just closed it off at night, the problem is, I think there's still water in the heating system out there, so it's not like you can just, unless you can isolate it. I don't think you can just leave that plate, that unheated, because then you'll have frozen pipes, so. So I don't know if there's any, what the solutions are, but maybe people can just brainstorm. I mean, I know there's a sensitivity to what I'm about to suggest, but in my mind, it's almost like, well, take the glass panels that we can't replace off, rebuild something with, you know, a wooden structure with, you know, a bunch of windows and, you know, 9 inches of insulation, and, you know, make it, you know, that much, you know, make it basically energy efficient. But we can't do that with what we have. But, and then, you know, somebody donated money to put that up so at one point. So there's a sensitivity to just ripping it down, but we've looked into fixing it. And if we can't block it off without a water, you know, freezing other things, then it almost seems like we gotta, maybe it's something to, Mary Ellen, you kind of know a little bit about these. Are there companies that could just come in and put a new one in? Not try to repair this one, but just put a new one in?
Yeah, Florian put that in, and they have the glass that they, you know, they reinstall. If you put a new one in, you'd be paying for the frame all over again. It doesn't look like there's anything wrong with the frame. The curtain issue. Pardon?
I thought the problem is we couldn't even get this glass.
Oh, no, you can't get the glass at the place in Brooklyn, that glass company in Brooklyn, Connecticut, because they don't do the curved glass. But people, the installers for Florian can get the glass, no problem.
Oh.
But you know, you're looking probably $20,000 to fix that, to put new glass in and reglaze it. And this is the wrong time of year now. We looked at the curtain, we got samples of the materials, it has to be fireproof, etc. And the board, when they passed it around, you know, the material around, said, nah, we're not going to do it, we'll leave it as it is. So I had prices back then, that was maybe 5 years ago. So I don't know, it's I agree that the people who donated it would probably be offended, but there's no money to keep it up. I thought of a fundraiser for it, but we can't even find a company that's actually interested in doing the work, because Florian just doesn't seem to support it. The local person, Florian Dealers in Pomfret, and he's not interested. There's one in Southington, he doesn't call back. So it's a big problem.
Yeah.
But is there another company besides Florian, if we went the whole frame route? I wonder would that expand and just don't even worry about sticking with fluorine. I just don't know how many. I've never looked into those type of things before to understand if it's, maybe fluorine is one of 5 companies in the area. It's just when you get into having to replace what we have versus, well, no, I should say fix what we have versus replace what we have. I don't know if that opens up the number of people that can help. I don't know.
Is that, you can see it from there, is the stained glass piece, is that curved or straight with a woman's face on it?
It looks curved.
Yeah, it looks curved,
Yeah,
Oh,
see,
yeah.
that's the big problem.
right?
That was the memorial was that. And
Right. But we take that one piece out and we make it integrated into the new whatever we build, and then just leave that as like the memorial to the people that donated it,
It's all curved.
so,
Same glass is curved.
yeah.
Am I the only
Yeah.
one who remembers Mrs. Dupuy?
I remember.
I didn't know.
Mrs. Dupuy. She was,
Yep.
she passed away while I was at the school, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that was for her. And they've always been a well-respected family in town, and,
Of course.
and
And I'm not saying that I don't, I do respect that, but it's kind of putting us in a bind because if we have something that's now not repairable, and it's gonna be to the point where it's not viable, and then it's like, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of in a hard spot.
well, can't we talk with the family and see what they think?
Oh, we could do that, yeah,
That might solve all our problems.
yeah.
yeah, I just
know-
looked up Florida's out of South Carolina. It's not local. I'll try calling them again and saying we're not getting any help from your local dealers and see, if they have anybody. I have a Florian, but it's not curved, it's straight. I had one person come from New York, and then I had one person come from Southington, Connecticut, and the installer was from Pomfret. So, yeah.
All right. I'll talk to Sally because I think she has the contact for some of the Dupuy family.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Sarli, any other pressing 5-year / repair type discussions we should be talking about?
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right, discussion of the 2022-2023 budget, so basically the current budget. Is there anything that's keeping you up at night?
Most certainly. Our oil, our fuel.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, so we are quickly approaching the need to ask the town for the $10,000 that was taken out of the budget and to bring that appropriation back into our budget. So I was able to lock us in for the rest of this year at $3.65 a gallon. And
That's good.
I thought so too. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the encouragement. I was able to also lock us in for next year at $3.47, which was really helpful in terms of planning out what we're going to look like. So I was taking advantage of those. If you remember, I think it was a week or two ago when it was starting to go pretty low. So for the remainder of this year, I don't know that I locked us into enough gallons to get us through because it's going to depend on how much we're going through. But we have had one fill up that was $10,330. And then I locked us in, which was 2,606 gallons. I've locked us in for 7,000 gallons. With all of the fees, it comes out to $25,586. And I don't know that will get us through the season. So if we used exactly how much we used for next year, we would need about that same amount to get through to the end. So it was budgeted for $30,000 in oil, and the town had taken the 10,000. So I would like to ask for us to get that back into our budget.
So we had 20,000 in our budget. When it all said, once they transferred the 10,000. It's not like we had 40,000 and it went to 30.
Correct.
It went 30 and it went to 20.
That's
If we
correct.
use the same this year that we used last season, at the present rate, how much over budget will we be by the end of the season? In oil?
From what was planned, it would be almost double.
So
Ooh.
dollar wise, is it over 10 grand?
So this wasn't my budget, so it's hard for me to speak to this, but
Yeah.
I think the planned budget was to, they were going to need $30,000. That was the
Yeah.
plan for this year.
Yeah,
If we stick to that 365 a gallon for the remainder of the year,
yeah,
and I include the 10,330 that we've already spent, that
yes,
total is going to be 62,299.
yeah,
Now, we're hoping we're not going to use as much as we did last year, because last year there was still a lot of the COVID protocols in place of having windows open even during the winter, which we do not have to do anymore. So there's things that I'm hoping we won't need to use as much or spend as much. But if it is a similar situation, or if we do use as much because it's colder, there's all those variables.
Do we have to prepay the 25 that you mentioned? You had said that you locked in for that price for a certain amount of gallons.
Right, we don't prepay it, so we pay it as it's delivered.
But okay, so that much oil that we've already done 10,000, that would be mid-20s. So that gets us up to like 35,000, which is already over the 30 we budgeted. And you're saying that if you base it on the amount of oil we actually used last year, then we would actually need twice as much as what even that 35 gets us.
Right,
Is that what you
but-
were saying?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. But within the budget and within our other funding sources, Sally and I meet weekly, so I might end up start meshing the two, but Sally and I meet weekly about preparing next year's budget, but we also do updates to this year's budget on a
Right.
weekly basis. So we have, we believe we know how to be able to cover it within this year's budget, even with the overage, but it is going to be a very tight rest of the year for us. And diesel too, diesel is astronomical. We, where's my notes here? So we had just,
what's the number?
there was 13,500 budgeted, and up to November, we've already spent $6,788 in diesel.
Through the end of November, or that was the beginning of November?
Sally and I met last week, so that was November. That would have been all of,
In November. Okay.
I mean, we met Tuesday, so that was November, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's. So by like March or so, we would have gone through a budget on that.
Yeah, so we're estimating about an additional 7,282
Yeah.
diesel that we're gonna need. That's our estimate right now.
Do we have any word, Mary Ellen, on like the
Electric buses.
timing of the electric buses?
They're on hold for, not hold, they're on a waiting list. So I don't think they're, ready to be delivered. We're on a waiting list.
No, but I'm just wondering about by February, if that would be close or not.
I doubt it.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, so
Uh,
oil and diesel are the two things. Everything else is probably pretty much as expected. I mean, salary.
We've also had we've had a family move in, and there's some transportation costs associated with that. So we do have some other unexpected budgetary items that happened. I mean, including, and you've heard us talk about this before at the board meetings, but there were 3 additional STEM students that have came to Hampton, if you would, over the summer that were not budgeted for. So there were some additional costs that were not anticipated. That leaves us really, we're capped right now. And we have a need, which is our curricular need, which is through state legislation right now, is requiring the science of reading, and there's 6 different programs we can choose from. I have been, and I'm going to report on this next week, so I apologize, you'll hear it again, but I've met with every single company up to this point, and the cost of it, the first time cost of it, you know, that one-time initial fee to get the program started in our building, not the year to year, but to get it started, is large. And I was hoping to be able to use some of our grants that we have remainders from COVID, but it looks like we're going to have to put that towards fuel, to be honest with you, for this year. So those are some real constraints that we're facing. And just to really quickly go over our 23-24 budget, it's tough again. It's really this fuel driving is driving how much.
Well, we knew it was coming and now we're here.
Right.
We all knew it.
Right. And our
Well,
kids
I hit it
need,
at the last meeting if you got oil. All
Right.
right,
right.
Well, is there any projection for next year yet on like insurance and stuff like that? Was there going to be much changes from this year?
They just had a meeting this evening. Rose, did you go
Which
to
I
that?
attended, yep. Yes, it's gonna go up high. So they were talking 20% as a low guess, but it's gonna go out to bid. So the hope is that a new company that hasn't just lost $2 million with our account will give us a better price. We won't know until February.
Yeah, so Sally and I have budgeted for that 20%, like Rose said.
Yeah, okay. And then the contract obviously increases
And cost of living, yep.
cost of living, yep. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little nervous with the direction we went in for the cooperation, that the Board of Finance is going to take that out on the board. So unfortunately, I predict it will probably be forced to stick with 0 and probably maybe be forced to cut a $50,000 for the projected ECS cuts in the near future. So I know we need to get the right level of support to make sure that we can justify the budget that we need. And, you know, I would say that your job is to work with Sally to put the budget that we need to support the kids. And then our job is to advocate for you and make that happen. So, but unfortunately, it's always a uphill battle, just to let you know.
I do want to just point out that ECS where they're saying that we're going to have to pay 50,000 more. I don't think Lamont can let that happen when we have a $3 billion, I forget what the fund is called, but rainy day fund. How can they do that? So I think if we work with our legislators, we don't have to worry about that hanging over our head. We still have budget issues. I agree. But I get so tired of them saying this is going to happen, and every year it gets put off. And then all of a sudden we have $3 billion extra.
Rose, I completely agree with you. Then my thought on it is the state never intended towns to just gouge elementary school budgets because they're cutting the grant. They said that, you know, the towns have to accommodate and maybe raise mill rates and unfortunately have a little higher taxes so that you can make up for that. They just didn't want it coming from the state level. They wanted to put it back on the shoulders of the, but I don't have confirmation from the state on this, but I can almost guarantee you it was not to just say you can go gouge a budget and not support the kids.
Yeah. I also think the fact that we had that positive vote
Yeah,
over the consolidation shows that we have a larger parent group that's willing to work with us.
yeah.
And I think we have to jump in and take advantage of that and really work on having them support us at the Board of Finance before the Board of Finance cuts us to shreds. So although yes, we're in a very bad spot, but I also think that we have positive actions we can take that could help us.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree, Rose, totally. Because I sit with our PTO meeting, so I agree. And I will also add, for whatever it's worth, we are not alone in what we're facing for the upcoming years. All of the districts, all of the superintendents in my in our region, we're all facing the same issue, especially with the grants no longer being there. So we're definitely not a what's the word here? We're not an island. We're not an island. Everyone, all the towns are in the same boat right now.
So you know that commercial that Shingles doesn't care? The Hampton Board of Finance doesn't care. They don't care that other people are in the position. They don't care that it's not our fault. And I don't mean to be so negative, but they just don't. So that's why we have to show them that that people care, you know, that we have parents who care and supporters of the school who care. So maybe they can't be an island anymore that just makes these, what I consider to be ridiculous decisions.
Yeah, no, I agree, Rose, and that's what I was saying. I think we need to be the advocate that help
Yeah.
justify and get those people that are supportive, get them out and get their voices heard.
Yeah, I agree.
And we do have a responsibility, and I don't get me wrong, Dr. Charlie, when I say this, but we do need to be fiscally responsible, which we are, and I trust you are, and Sally knows. So I trust that you guys are. So, you know, we have to always have that balance.
So I want to say that this man who came out to look at solar for the town garage said that any town that does not take advantage of the 30% federal money to put up solar is malpractice. Yeah, so there are things that can be done with money that is not local. Also, I wanted to go back to the diesel fuel. Since the Parish Hill transportation is in our budget, since diesel went up quite a bit, is there any way to get more money out of not necessarily the Region 11 budget, but from the town on diesel? It's not just our school that needs that diesel.
Yes, basically half of that is the Parish Hill run, because they do a run which pretty much goes the very similar routes, and then they do another second run of the elementary school. So yeah, you're right.
Well, we carry the Parish Hill expenses in our budget, though.
Right, but the fact that it's gone up, should some of that money come from somewhere else besides our budget?
Oh, I see. Yep. Well,
No.
once again, we've tried it. We've tried to say that, and we're told no.
Right.
It's
Right. All right.
well,
All right, so 2023, 2024 budget, it sounds like, you know, we are putting the numbers together. We have increases for fuel, which we knew were coming. always kind of figure insurance is going up and, but we'll have to, trust, I do trust that you and Sally will put something together that's, we can look at, that's reasonable and, go from there.
Yes, I'll have something more in a presentable fashion for our next F&O meeting.
That's fair. All right, no, appreciate the hard work. All right, I guess audience for staff and citizens, Don, you got any more discussion you'd like to have? Want to go home and go to bed just like me?
I'd like to rub my crystal ball and come up with some good answers on some of this
I
stuff,
know.
that's for sure.
Fair enough. All right.
This is a quick education on my part.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't even scratched the surface.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, we'll keep going at it. We'll figure it out. All right, next agenda. So yeah, we'll meet in January. I think we have the dates laid out based on the minute or the meeting last month. One thing I wanted to get everybody's agreement on, I think for the winter months at least, I'd like to just go back to a pure Zoom meeting. Dr. Sarley lives pretty far away. Everybody else, I think from a weather perspective, it just reduces that churn. And if we have a storm or something else, as long as we have power and internet, people should be able to continue doing the meeting. So does anybody have any opposition to just making it a direct Zoom meeting without the option to do hybrid like this? All right.
Nope.
Yeah, just, especially like tonight, it's kind of weird because Rose or Dr. Sarley, I might have to call you afterwards because I feel a little bit weird just walking out of the building without locking it. And no one else is here, so.
Armin should be
cleaning-
there. Let me
Yeah.
text him. I'll text him, but he should be in the building.
Okay. All right, yeah, if you could do that, and then, so we have the time, date and time, and, sorry, time will be 7. So with that said, I think we can adjourn.
Oh, wait, I thought we
Okay.
were gonna talk about things to go on the agenda for next
Oh,
time.
sorry, next agenda planning guy. You're right, good point. I would say it's probably gonna be a very similar agenda to this, probably a presentation from Greenleaf. Then we'll have to have some more discussion on what are the project, our vision for the project. At that point, maybe knowing a little bit more about what incentives might be in 2023. PA system, hopefully by then we'll have some progress, and then maybe, I don't know, I'll try to do it over the next month. Maybe we can do a little bit more research on what's viable for a sunroom, a repair,
I was
or,
gonna check with
and then I'll see if I can also find some time to reach out to the Dupuy family,
Sally.
So I'd like to add one agenda item.
Sure.
So this is, because I'm chair of the board and procedure, I try hard to do procedure. We have 5 board members here actively participating in the meeting, and that just is not okay. So we have to decide on how to handle that. Now, when it comes to the building things, I cannot really add. So the operations part of the F&O committee, I don't think I'm needed, but the finance part, I really don't want to back out of. So I'm not sure how we can handle it. So I
Okay.
thought we could discuss it as a committee and decide what we want to do.
Well, my thoughts too, as I was looking over the committee assignments and with Russ resigning, maybe we could rearrange some of the committee assignments, I don't know. We gotta fill the ones, Russ's vacancy.
But Russ wasn't on this committee, so that kind of doesn't
I'm
help
just
us.
talking all
Right.
committees, so I've just,
Yeah.
so take another look at all the committee assignments. Not tonight not this meeting, but take a look at,
I'm sorry, but I want this committee to discuss the issue of this committee being so crowded. I think we can solve it if we have the discussion.
okay.
Right.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
do have to, but
And
we
I-
do have to fill
Right.
our other committees. And we do have to give JR some committee assignments.
Right.
Yeah.
So JR, just to look, like from a committee standpoint, and Rose, I'll be as blunt as I can be, like as the chair, I probably should ask you not to talk, except for the audience for staff and citizens,
Okay. it
just
was-
because, but I'm usually a pretty loose chair and I don't mind, so that's the problem. I mean.
That I appreciate. I was under the impression that Russ was on this committee,
No.
and that was the reason I was here.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, he wasn't.
Okay,
Actually, can you email him the committee assignments, Rose, so he can see who's on what? Or can somebody?
Yes, I can do that.
No, this is up to me and I need to do some appointments, so that'll change what the committee assignments are. Although JR is replacing Russ, that doesn't automatically place him on those committees.
Right.
Understand.
oh,
Okay,
Well,
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. You're already on it, so.
okay, I get it now.
Right.
Yeah,
So I just want to explain to JR that we have the majority of the board this way with 5 people. And once you have the majority of the board, it has to be posted as a board meeting rather than a committee meeting. And that's the problem.
okay. I understood this is to be like a subcommittee of the Board of Education. So
it is a subcommittee, yeah.
and I was wrong in assuming that Russ was on this committee. That's just something, yeah, I'm gonna have to get a schedule and.
Yeah.
When you appoint me to whatever it is, we'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Go from
I
there.
was gonna bring it to the next meeting, if that works for people,
Next week.
in case some people wanted to discuss changes in theirs.
Right.
But I was gonna come with a suggested committee list.
Okay, good.
All right, yep, we can add that to the agenda.
Great. But, and I want this group to discuss it because I think in many ways, in all ways, the operations part of the budget, JR is a better committee member than me. It's the finance part
Yep.
that I think I'd have a little trouble getting,
No,
eliminated
front on
from.
that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
Great.
And now if we posted it, if for next year that we have the regular scheduled meetings, could it be considered a full board meeting or not really? It's still a subcommittee, right?
If we have 5 people, I don't know. I don't think we can have 5 people.
Okay,
And the problem for that is we could make decisions, right? 5 people can make a decision that would pass at a board meeting, and we're not including the other board members
right,
when we're making that decision. So I don't think we can have 5, yeah.
right,
Well,
okay.
let me
Irregardless
throw
of
this
how
out.
it's posted.
Uh-huh,
Let me throw this out. On some committees and sometimes the chair is considered I guess it's a de facto member rather than a participating member. We don't vote on committees. So, I mean, we never vote in committees. So if the committee were, JR, Mark, David, and I, and you attended as the board chair, you could discuss without voting.
but I couldn't,
Just think about
okay.
it.
I'll think about it and we'll talk about it when we come back.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I bought the Robert Rules book, so I'll dig them out and go through this part too.
yeah, all right. And to be fair, we've had other board members join in on the F&O meeting, and I've asked that they don't participate except for audience for staff and citizens, so we try to maintain that rule, but sometimes we kind of get into discussions and I lose that, so.
Well, and it's hard when you have someone who knows what they're talking about.
Great, yeah.
Wanting to say something. That makes sense to me.
great, and it's a small group of people who are all, in looking for the best interest of the school. So, you hate to not
Right.
include those comments. So,
Yeah,
And Kathy Donahue isn't on the board at all, and she sometimes participates, so.
Right.
um,
Which
Yeah.
again, is the chair's fault. I could,
Well-
I could nip that in the butt, but a lot of times, what she's offering does help, so I just let it go.
I hear you.
Yeah. All right, I think with that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Dr. Sarli, did you have any input from Armin?
He has not responded just yet, but if you adjourn, I could stop recording and we can wait a minute.
Okay, that works. Yeah, adjourn at 8:30.
Okay.
Okay, Merry Christmas.
you
Merry
too.
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.